Trust me, they are going to regret this." Those were the first words I heard from Richard Grant, the man in the gray suit who would change my trajectory forever. But before I tell you about him, I need you to understand how I reached that breaking point, that precise moment when my world collapsed in the middle of a cold, impersonal airport terminal. My name is Mary Daniels. I am 60 years old, and this story begins in the most unlikely of places, Miami International Airport, on an October afternoon in 2023. I was sitting on one of those unforgiving metal chairs, my small carry-on beside me and my handbag clutched tight on my lap. I had just spent 2 weeks visiting my children. Thomas, my oldest, lived in a sleek condo in Coral Gables. Pamela, my youngest, had a modern apartment in Brickell. Both had invited me with such enthusiasm that I, in my naivety, actually thought they wanted to spend time with me. I could not have been more wrong. The visit had been strained. Thomas barely spoke 2 words to me. Pamela was always glued to her phone. Meals were eaten in suffocating silence. I tried to make conversation, to ask about their lives, but I was met with curt answers and annoyed glances. I felt like an intruder in their perfect lives. That morning, while I was finishing packing in Thomas's guest room, I heard voices in the living room. I walked closer, moving slowly, and saw them both, my son and my daughter, speaking in low but firm tones. "We can't keep up this charade," Pamela was saying. "She expects us to treat her like everything is fine, as if we don't remember everything she did." "I know," Thomas replied, "but she's here now, just a few more hours until she's gone." "A few hours too many," Pamela muttered with pure disdain. I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. What exactly had I done to them? I had worked my entire life to give them an education, food, a roof over their heads. I had given up my own dreams so they could chase theirs. And now this? I didn't say a word. I went back to the room and finished packing with silent tears rolling down my cheeks. Thomas drove me to the airport. The ride was dead silent. He didn't even turn on the radio. When we arrived at the international terminal, he unloaded my suitcase from the trunk and handed it to me without looking me in the eye. "Have a safe trip, Mom," he said, his voice flat, empty. I wanted to hug him, but he was already getting back into the driver's seat. I stood there, frozen, watching him drive away. Then I took a deep breath and walked into the airport. I'll be home soon, I told myself. Back to Kansas. Soon, all of this will be behind me. I reached the airline counter and handed over my ID. The agent scanned it, typed on her keyboard, and frowned. "Mrs. Daniels, there is a problem with your reservation." "A problem?" I asked, feeling my heart start to race. "Your flight has been canceled." "Canceled? But how? I've had my ticket confirmed for weeks." The agent typed again. "According to the system, the cancellation was processed an hour ago from a mobile device registered to Thomas Daniels." The world stopped spinning. Thomas, my own son, had canceled my flight. "It must be a mistake," I whispered, though I knew in my gut it wasn't. "I'm sorry, ma'am. There is nothing I can do. If you wish to purchase a new ticket—" Yes, please. How much is it?" $800. $800? I didn't have $800. I had barely brought enough for a few minor expenses during the visit. I reached into my handbag. I checked every compartment. And then it hit me. My wallet was gone. My phone was missing too. I had left them in Thomas's guest room. No, wait. I had packed them. I was sure of it. But now they weren't there. I felt like I was suffocating. I was stranded halfway across the country with no money, no phone, and no way to get back home. And my own children had left me like this. "Ma'am, are you okay?" the agent asked. I couldn't answer. I just shook my head and backed away from the counter, dragging my suitcase. I walked aimlessly through the terminal until I found a quiet corner near a massive window overlooking the runways. I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, trying not to make a scene. But the tears came anyway, silent, bitter, filled with a sadness that didn't have a name. How could they do this to me? I raised them with every ounce of love I had. Was my love really so toxic that it warranted this cruelty? I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe minutes, maybe an hour. People passed me by without really seeing me. I was invisible. A 60-year-old woman, alone and broken, in the middle of an indifferent crowd. And then I heard a voice. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you all right?" I looked up. Standing in front of me was a man of about 65, tall, with gray hair, perfectly combed, dressed in an elegant gray suit, but no tie. His eyes were a light hazel color, and there was something strange in them, a mixture of curiosity and, was that understanding? "I'm fine," I lied, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. He didn't move. He stood there, observing me closely. Then he looked toward the airline counter, then back at me. "You don't look fine," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Forgive my intrusion, but I just saw what happened at the counter. I heard part of the conversation." I didn't know what to say. I felt humiliated. He must have noticed my confusion because he crouched down slightly, getting on my level. "My name is Richard," he said. "Richard Grant, and I believe you need help." "I can't accept help from a stranger," I whispered. He smiled sadly. "I understand, but I can see that your own children have left you here, with nothing. Am I wrong?" The tears welled up again. I couldn't control it. He pulled a cloth handkerchief from his pocket and offered it to me. "Thank you," I murmured, taking it. Richard stayed silent for a few seconds, as if he were thinking. Then he said something I will never forget. 3 years ago, I lost my wife. Cancer. She was everything to me. And since then, I've been alone. Very alone. He paused. "Today I came to the airport to pick up a business partner, but his flight was delayed. I was about to leave when I saw you here, crying, and something inside me told me I couldn't just walk away." I looked at him, not understanding. He continued, "I know this is going to sound strange, maybe even dangerous, but I have a proposal." My heart beat faster. A proposal? From a stranger? Richard leaned in a little closer and lowered his voice. "Pretend to be my wife. My driver is arriving in a few minutes. Come with me to my house. Rest. Think. And tomorrow, if you want, I will buy you a ticket back to Kansas with no strings attached." I froze. Was I hearing this right? Was this man insane, or was he a guardian angel in a gray suit? "Why would you do that?" I asked with distrust. "What do you want from me?" He smiled again, but this time his smile was different. There was something in it, something cold, calculating. "Trust me," he said, and his eyes shone with an intensity that made the hair on my arm stand up. "They are going to regret this." I don't know what made me accept. Maybe it was the desperation. Maybe it was the exhaustion of carrying everything alone for so many years. Or maybe, deep down, something in Richard Grant's gaze told me that he understood my pain in a way no one else could. "All right," I whispered finally. "I'll go with you, but only for tonight." Richard nodded. "Only for tonight," he repeated, though we both knew those words weren't entirely true. 15 minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled up to the airport curb. A uniformed driver got out and opened the rear door. Richard offered me his arm with a chivalry I hadn't experienced in decades. "After you, Mrs. Grant," he said with a discreet smile. Those words made me feel something strange. Mrs. Grant, like I was someone important, like I mattered. The ride was quiet. I watched out the window as the airport disappeared behind us, and the landscape shifted to elegant residential zones, with tall palm trees and white mansions hidden behind walls covered in bougainvillea. The driver drove smoothly, and Richard checked his phone in silence, respecting my need not to talk. We arrived at a massive property in Coral Gables. The wrought iron gates opened automatically, and the car advanced down a cobblestone driveway surrounded by impeccable gardens. In the background, the house rose up like something out of a magazine. Mediterranean architecture, white columns, balconies with iron railings, and a stone fountain in the center of the front courtyard. I was speechless. "Welcome," Richard said as the driver opened my door. I stepped out slowly, feeling my legs tremble. This couldn't be real. Hours ago, I was crying on an airport floor, and now I was here. Richard guided me toward the main entrance, An older housekeeper, her hair in a perfect bun, received us with a discreet bow. "Good afternoon, Mr. Grant," she said with a soft accent. "Good afternoon, Martha. This is Mrs. Mary Daniels. She will be our guest. Please, prepare the guest room in the east wing." "Right away, sir." Martha looked at me with curiosity but asked no questions. She just nodded and disappeared down a side hallway. Richard led me to a huge living room with soaring ceilings, light marble floors, and large windows looking out to a backyard where a crystal-clear pool shimmered. The furniture was elegant but comfortable. Cream-colored sofas, dark wood tables, crystal lamps projecting a warm, cozy light. "Sit down, please," Richard said, pointing to one of the sofas. I sat carefully, as if afraid I might break something. He sat opposite me in an armchair and crossed his legs with natural elegance. "I know this is unconventional," he began, "but I want you to know you are safe here. No one is going to hurt you. No one is going to ask you for anything you don't want to give." I nodded slowly. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You don't even know me." Richard smiled sadly. "It's true, I don't know you, but I recognize pain when I see it, and yours is identical to what I have felt these last few years." He stood up and walked to a mantelpiece where several framed photos sat. He took one and showed it to me. In it was a beautiful woman with blonde hair, smiling in front of a turquoise sea. Next to her was a younger Richard, hugging her with a tenderness you could feel even through the glass of the frame. "That was Catherine," he said softly. "My wife. We were married 38 years. She passed in December of 2020. Pancreatic cancer." I felt a lump in my throat. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you," he said, returning the photo to its place. "The first few months after her death were unbearable. This house, so big, so empty. Just me, Martha, and the driver, and a silence that was driving me crazy." He paused as if reliving those dark days. "I tried to fill the void with work. I have a real estate company, investments in several countries. But money fills nothing. The meetings, the contracts, the business trips, it all felt hollow." I listened in silence, feeling a strange connection to this man I barely knew. "And today," Richard continued, "when I saw you in that airport crying alone, I saw Catherine. Not physically, of course, but I saw that same pain, that same loneliness, and something told me I couldn't leave you there." His words hit me deep because I had been alone too. Even when my children still lived with me in Kansas, I was already alone. Richard sat down again. "I don't expect you to understand me. I don't even expect you to trust me yet. I only ask that you rest tonight. Tomorrow we will talk calmly." I nodded, not knowing what else to say. Martha returned a few minutes later and led me to the guest room. It was bigger than my entire house back home. A king-size bed with crisp white sheets, a private balcony overlooking the garden, a marble bathroom with a massive tub. On the bed lay a silk nightgown and a soft robe. "If you need anything, ma'am, there is a buzzer next to the bed," Martha said kindly. "Thank you," I whispered. When Martha left, I stood in the middle of that luxurious room, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. 12 hours ago, I was in my son's house, feeling like a burden. Now I was here, in a mansion, being treated like a queen. I walked to the balcony and opened the doors. The Miami night air drifted in with a warm breeze that smelled of jasmine. The garden lights illuminated the palm trees and the pool. Everything was so beautiful, so unreal. And then, for the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel something I had buried very deep. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, life still had something good in store for me. That night I slept deeply. It was the first restful sleep I'd had in months. No nightmares, no anxiety, just a warm and comforting silence. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds. I got up slowly, still feeling the softness of the sheets under my fingers. I bathed in that huge tub, with hot water that relaxed every tense muscle in my body. When I went down to the dining room, I found Richard sitting at a long table reading the newspaper. Upon seeing me, he stood up. "Good morning, Mary. Did you rest well?" "Yes," I replied sincerely. "I haven't slept like that in years." He smiled. I'm glad to hear that. Martha made breakfast. I hope you're hungry. And boy, was I hungry. Martha had prepared a feast. Scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, warm bread, fresh orange juice, aromatic coffee. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. Richard watched me closely. Mary, I have a question if you don't mind answering. Go ahead, I said, wiping my lips with a linen napkin. What really happened with your children? I looked down. The tears threatened to return, but I held them back. I took a deep breath. I don't know, I admitted, my voice cracking. For years I thought we had a good relationship. I worked my whole life to give them everything. Their father died when they were small, a car accident. I was left a widow at 32 with 2 kids and not a single dollar in the bank. Richard listened without interrupting. I worked every job imaginable. I cleaned houses, waited tables, sewed clothes for neighbors. They never lacked for anything. I sent them to good schools. Thomas studied business administration. Pamela studied marketing. They both moved to the city 10 years ago, got good jobs, got married, built their lives. I paused, feeling the weight of the memories. I stayed in Kansas, alone, waiting for their calls that became more and more scarce, their visits that never happened. And when they finally invited me to visit them here, I thought they wanted to reconnect, that they missed me. My voice broke. But it wasn't like that. The whole visit, they treated me like a stranger, like I was a burden. And yesterday I discovered it was all planned, canceling my flight, leaving me without a phone, without money, as if they wanted to dispose of me. Richard closed his eyes with sorrow. I'm so sorry, Mary. Me too, I whispered, because now I understand that for them, I don't exist anymore. The silence that followed was profound. Richard stood up and walked to the window. He stood there a few seconds, looking at the garden. Then he turned to me. You know what? I think fate brought us together for a reason. I looked at him curiously. I have a proposal, he said, and I know it's going to sound crazy, but hear me out. My heart started beating faster. Richard walked closer and sat down opposite me again. Stay here. Not just tonight. Stay. As long as you need. This house is too big for me alone. And you need a place to heal. I shook my head. I can't accept that. It would be taking advantage of your generosity. It wouldn't be taking advantage, he said firmly. It would be company. I am tired of being alone, and you deserve to be treated with dignity. I didn't know what to answer. It was too much. Everything was too much. But deep down, a part of me wanted to stay. I wanted, even if just for a few days, to feel that someone valued me. I'll think about it, I said finally. Richard nodded with a smile. That's all I ask. That afternoon, he had to go out for a business meeting. I stayed in the house, exploring the gardens, sitting by the pool, reading a book I found in the library. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. But what I didn't know was that this peace was just the beginning of something much bigger, something that would change my life forever. The first few days at Richard's house were like living in a dream. I woke up every morning in that huge room, with white curtains moving gently in the balcony breeze. I had breakfast with him in the dining room. Quiet conversations about books, music, memories of better times. He was a cultured man, educated, with a subtle sense of humor that made me smile. Martha treated me with a respect I hadn't felt in years. She asked me what I wanted to eat, if I needed anything, if the room temperature was right. Small details that made me feel seen. 5 days passed. I knew I had to go back to Kansas, but every time I thought about returning to my empty house, to those 4 walls full of silence, something inside me resisted. One afternoon, while we were having coffee in the garden, Richard looked at me with that intensity I was starting to know. Mary, can I ask you a personal question? Of course, I replied, feeling a slight tension. Have you tried to contact your children? I looked down at my cup. No, I don't have a phone. And even if I did, what for? They made it very clear what they think of me. Richard nodded slowly. I understand, but wouldn't you like to know why they did it? Wouldn't you like to confront them? What for? I asked bitterly. To hear more lies? To have them tell me I'm a burden, a nuisance? No, Richard, I don't have the strength for that anymore. He leaned forward. And if there was a way for them to understand the damage they did, for them to feel what you felt. I looked at him, confused. What are you talking about? Richard smiled in a strange way. It wasn't a cruel smile, but it wasn't completely kind either. It was something in between, something calculated. Let's speak plainly, Mary. You are an intelligent woman. You must have noticed that I didn't invite you to my house just out of compassion. My heart started to race. What do you mean? He sighed and leaned back in his chair. I am 67 years old. It's been 3 years since Catherine died, and 6 months ago, I received a diagnosis. The world seemed to stop. A diagnosis? I repeated, my voice trembling. Richard nodded. Lung cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave me between 1 and 3 years to live, maybe less. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the garden. Richard, I am so sorry. He raised his hand. I don't need condolences. I already went through that stage. Denial, anger, acceptance, all of it. Now I just want to live what remains of my life with dignity. And I don't want to do it alone. I didn't know what to say. Richard continued. Catherine and I didn't have children. She couldn't. We tried to adopt, but back then the processes were complicated. So I spent my whole life building a real estate empire, investments, properties in 5 countries. But for what? To leave it all to foundations that don't even know my name? He paused. Or worse, so my nephews, who only call me when they need money, can pick apart my life like vultures? I understood where this was going, but I didn't want to believe it. When I saw you in that airport, Richard said softly, I saw an opportunity, not just to help you, but to help myself. What exactly are you proposing? I asked, feeling a tremor in my voice. Richard stood up and walked toward me. He knelt in front of my chair, taking my hands in his. His hazel eyes looked at me with a mixture of hope and sadness. Marry me, Mary. I froze. Had I heard right? It is not a romantic proposal, he clarified quickly. I am not asking you to love me. I am just asking you to be my companion in this final stage, to be with me in my last months so this house doesn't feel so empty. I pulled my hands away, feeling like this was too much. Richard, this is madness, I know, he said, standing up. But think about it. You need a place to be, a purpose, and I need someone who sees me as a human being, not a dying man. Someone to accompany me without pity. He paused. And when I die, everything I have will be yours. This house, the properties, the bank accounts, everything. I stood up abruptly. Are you buying me? No, Richard said firmly. I am offering you a way out, a new life, and in exchange, I will have peace in my last days. I walked to the other side of the garden, needing space. This was overwhelming. And what about my children? I asked, suddenly turning around. What will they think when they find out I married a millionaire? Richard's smile returned, that calculated smile. Exactly, he said. Imagine their faces when they find out that the woman they abandoned at an airport is now the wife of a multimillionaire. Imagine when they try to contact you, beg forgiveness, ask for help, and you have the power to say no. Something inside me shifted. It wasn't revenge, not exactly. It was justice. Think about it, Richard insisted. Don't give me an answer now. Take a few days, a week, whatever you need, but know that this offer is genuine and that I really need this. I nodded slowly, unable to process everything I had just heard. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. About my kids, about my life in Kansas, about this sick man offering me an exit door I never imagined. Was it right? Was it moral? Or was it simply a desperate old woman clinging to driftwood in a shipwreck? I didn't know. But one thing became clear that night. I didn't want to go back to being the Mary Daniels crying on an airport floor. I didn't want to be invisible anymore. 3 days passed. Richard didn't mention the topic again. We continued having breakfast together, talking, sharing comfortable silences, but I knew he was waiting for my answer. One morning, while having coffee, he coughed. It was a dry, prolonged cough that forced him to bring his hand to his chest. When he pulled it away, I saw a small spot of blood on his handkerchief. The same handkerchief he had given me at the airport. He put it away quickly, trying to hide it, but I had already seen it. "Are you taking your meds?" I asked gently. He looked at me, surprised. "Yes, but they don't do much anymore." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. This man, with all his money, with all his elegance, was dying, and he was alone. "Richard," I said firmly, "I accept." He looked up. "You accept what?" "I accept your proposal. I will marry you. I accept to accompany you, not for the money, but because no one deserves to die alone." Richard closed his eyes, and for the first time since I met him, I saw a tear roll down his cheek. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, Mary." We got married a week later. It was a small ceremony, intimate, in the house garden. Just the two of us, Martha, the driver, and a justice of the peace Richard knew. There was no white dress, no music, just simple vows and a gold ring he slid onto my finger with trembling hands. "I promise to take care of you," I told him when it was my turn to speak. "I promise to set you free when I am gone," he replied with a sad smile. And just like that, at 60 years old, I became Mrs. Mary Daniels Grant. That night, while we dined alone in the dining room, Richard raised his wine glass. "To new beginnings," he said. "To new beginnings," I repeated, toasting with him. But in the back of my mind, a question kept echoing. What would Thomas and Pamela say when they found out? And more importantly, did I care? The answer, I discovered, was no. I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I was the master of my own destiny, and that feeling was intoxicating. But what I didn't know was that this decision would unleash a chain of events that would change everything, absolutely everything. The first months as Richard Grant's wife were strange, not because of him, but because of me. I struggled to accept that this new life was real. Sometimes I woke up at dawn and walked barefoot through the house, touching the marble walls, the fine wood furniture, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Richard was a man of routines. We had breakfast at 8 in the morning. He read the newspaper, while I drank my coffee looking at the garden. Then he retired to his office on the second floor to take business calls, review contracts, oversee his investments. I, for my part, started taking English classes with a tutor Richard hired. I wanted to refine my accent, to feel more confident. Martha taught me how to manage some aspects of the house, how the security system worked, where the spare keys were, what days the gardener came. She treated me with respect, but also with affection, as if she understood I needed to feel useful. "Mrs. Grant," she would say, "you don't have to help me in the kitchen. That's what I'm here for." "I know, Martha," I would reply, "but I need to do something with my hands. My whole life I've worked. I can't just sit here." She would smile and let me help her chop vegetables, prepare sauces, bake bread. Those moments brought me peace. Richard noticed my restlessness. One afternoon in November, while walking in the garden, he told me, "Mary, I know this isn't easy for you, going from a life of constant work to a life of comfort." "It's not that," I replied. "It's just that I feel like an imposter, like at any moment someone is going to discover I don't belong in this world." He stopped and took my hands. "Listen to me well. You are not an imposter. You are my wife, and this is your home as much as it is mine." I nodded, but deep down, the feeling of not belonging remained. Weeks passed. December arrived with a cooler breeze. Richard decorated the house for Christmas, not with ostentation, but with elegance. White lights on the garden trees, a natural pine wreath on the front door, a Christmas tree in the living room with gold and silver ornaments. Catherine loved Christmas, he told me while hanging an antique ornament on the tree. Every year she bought a new ornament. This one, he pointed to a small crystal bell. It was the last one she bought, 2 weeks before she died. I touched the bell carefully. It made a soft, delicate chime. "She was a special woman," I said. "She was," Richard replied with sadness, "and I know I can never replace her. But you have given me something I thought I wouldn't have again." "What is that?" I asked. "Company without expectations. Conversation without lies. Peace." Those words hit home because I felt the same way. With Richard, I didn't have to pretend to be strong. I didn't have to carry the weight of anyone's expectations. I could simply be. One morning in mid-December, I was in the kitchen helping Martha bake a pecan pie. It was something that reminded me of home, of the holidays back in Kansas. Richard walked in carrying a small box wrapped in gold paper. "For you," he said, handing me the box. "What is it?" I asked, drying my hands on my apron. "An early Christmas gift. Open it." I opened the box carefully. Inside was a brand new cell phone, the latest model. "Richard, this is too much." "No," he interrupted, "it is necessary. You have been here almost 2 months and haven't been able to contact anyone back home. Your friends, your neighbors, they must be worried." He was right. I had left without warning, without saying goodbye, without explanations. "Thank you," I whispered, clutching the phone to my chest. That night, I sat in my room with the phone in my hands. Richard had already set everything up. I just had to turn it on and dial. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, a 70-year-old woman who lived next door in Kansas. She answered on the third ring. "Hello?" she said with her raspy voice. "Mrs. Higgins, it's me, Mary." There was a silence, then a scream. "Mary, my God, where are you? We've been looking for you for weeks. Your house is closed up. No one knew anything. I thought something terrible had happened to you." I felt a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Higgins. It's just everything happened so fast. I went to visit my kids and decided to stay a while longer." "Stay? There? With your kids?" There was surprise in her voice. "Something like that," I lied. "I'm fine. I just wanted to let you know I'm okay." "Thank God, honey. You had me worried sick. Well, take care of yourself, and let me know when you come back." "I will," I promised, though I knew I wouldn't go back. Not any time soon, at least. I hung up and stared at the phone. I had Thomas's number, Pamela's number. I could call them. I could tell them where I was. I could, but I didn't. I didn't want to hear their voices. I didn't want their excuses. I didn't want their contempt. So I put the phone in the nightstand drawer and tried to sleep. Sometimes we trust too much in those we shouldn't. Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read it. The days passed. Richard started getting tired faster. His work sessions got shorter. Some afternoons, I found him asleep in his office, his head resting on the desk. I would walk in slowly, cover him with a blanket, and sit in the nearby armchair, reading a book in silence, just so he wouldn't feel alone when he woke up. One night in late December, during dinner, Richard coughed again. This time was worse. The cough doubled him over, struggling to breathe. I ran to him, holding him by the shoulders. "I'm okay," he gasped when he could finally speak. "I just need a moment." But he wasn't okay. I knew it. And he knew it, too. "When was your last appointment with the doctor?" I asked. 2 weeks ago, he admitted. "He told me the treatment isn't working anymore, that I need to prepare." "Prepare for what?" He looked at me with those hazel eyes that now seemed more tired, sadder. "For the end." I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. I knew this day would come. I knew from the start that Richard was sick. But hearing him say those words so directly hit me in a way I didn't expect. "How long?" I asked, my voice trembling. 6 months, maybe less, maybe a year if I get lucky. I let myself fall into the chair opposite him. "Richard, don't cry," he said gently. "Please, don't cry. I had enough tears with Catherine. With you, I want everything to be different." "How can I not cry?" I whispered. "I've grown fond of you. You are important to me." He smiled. "And you to me. That is why I need to ask you something." "Anything," I said without hesitation. "When the time comes, when I can no longer fend for myself, don't take me to a hospital. I want to die here, in my house, in my bed, with dignity." I nodded, though every word broke my heart. "I promise," I said. Richard extended his hand, and I took it. We stayed like that, in silence, while the candles on the table cast dancing shadows on the walls. Christmas passed. It was quiet, just the two of us. Richard gave me a pearl necklace that had belonged to his mother. I gave him a hand-knit sweater I had made, working in secret during the afternoons while he slept. "It's perfect," he said when he unwrapped it. "No one has knitted anything for me in my entire life." He put it on immediately, even though it was warm out, and wore it every day since then. New Year's arrived, 2024. Richard and I toasted with sparkling cider, watching the fireworks from his bedroom balcony. "To the time we have left," he said. "To the time we have left," I repeated. January passed in a sort of truce. Richard had good days and bad days. On good days, we walked in the garden, read together, watched old movies he loved. On bad days, I stayed by his side, holding his hand, reading aloud to him, helping him take his meds. Martha taught me to prepare the soft foods he now needed: creamy soups, soft purees, fresh juices. Little by little, I became his primary caregiver. And strangely, it didn't bother me. Quite the opposite. I felt I finally had a purpose. One afternoon in February, while I was feeding him vegetable soup, Richard said, "Mary, I need you to know something." "Tell me," I replied, wiping the corner of his lips with a napkin. "I've made all the legal arrangements. My lawyer has clear instructions. When I die, everything transfers to your name. The house, the properties, the bank accounts, the investments, everything." "Richard, you don't have to." "Yes, I have to," he interrupted firmly. "And I want you to promise me something else, that when I am gone, you will live. Live fully. Travel. Buy what you want. Do what you never could. Don't lock yourself in mourning like I did with Catherine. Promise me." I felt tears rolling down my cheeks. "I promise." He smiled weakly. "Good girl." That night, when Richard was asleep, I sat on my bedroom balcony. I looked at the starry Miami sky and thought about my life. Barely 4 months ago, I was an abandoned woman in an airport, invisible, broken, valueless to anyone. Now, I was the wife of a dying man who was leaving me a fortune. Was this fair? Was it right? I didn't know. But what I did know was that for the first time in decades, someone needed me, and I was willing to be there until the end, no matter what came after. March arrived with a humid heat that made Miami afternoons almost unbearable. Richard spent more time in his room with the AC on, resting among pillows I arranged carefully so he could breathe better. His health was visibly deteriorating. He didn't come down for breakfast anymore. I took food to his room on elegant trays Martha prepared with care, though he barely tried a few bites. His appetite had almost completely disappeared. One morning, while helping him sit up to take his meds, I noticed he had lost a lot of weight. His hands, once strong, now looked fragile, almost translucent under the sunlight coming through the window. "You're thinking too much," he said with a weak smile. "I can see the gears turning in your brain." I smiled despite the sadness. "I just worry about you." "I know, and I appreciate it," he paused. "Mary, can I ask you a favor?" "Of course." "Go to the study on the first floor. In the top right drawer of the desk, there is a blue folder. Bring it to me, please." I nodded and went down the stairs. Richard's study was a large room with floor-to-ceiling shelves full of books. An antique mahogany desk and large windows faced the side garden. It smelled of old paper and the cologne he used. I opened the drawer he indicated and found the folder. It was marked with a label that said, "Legal Documents, Confidential." I didn't open it, respecting his privacy, but I felt the weight of what it contained. When I returned to the room, Richard took it with trembling hands. "Here is everything," he said, opening the folder. "The will, the property deeds, the bank accounts, the investment contracts." He pulled out several documents and spread them on the bed. I sat beside him, looking at papers full of legal terms I barely understood. "Look," he pointed to one document. "This is the deed to this house. Estimated value, $4.2 million. Now it is in your name." I felt my breath catch. "Richard." "Wait, there is more." He pointed to another document. These are the properties in California. 5 apartment buildings in Los Angeles. Combined value, $12 million. Also in your name. My head started spinning. And these, he continued, showing me more papers, investments in international funds, approximately $8 million, distributed in different portfolios. Richard, stop, I whispered. It's too much. I don't need— Yes, you do, he interrupted firmly. You need security. You need freedom. You need to never again depend on anyone who treats you like you are worthless. His words hit me because he was right. All this, he said, closing the folder, is yours, legally. My lawyer, Mr. Morrison, has copies of everything. When I die, you just have to call him, and he will handle the paperwork. I took his hand. I don't want to talk about when you die, but we have to, he said softly, because that day is coming, and I want you to be prepared. We remained silent for a few moments. Then Richard said something that surprised me. Have you never felt curious to hear from your children? I tensed up. No. Liar, he said with a sad smile. I can see it in your eyes. Every time you see a family on TV, every time Martha talks about her grandkids, you wonder about them. I looked away. So what if I wonder? They made it very clear they don't want me in their lives. And what if you're wrong? I'm not wrong, I said bitterly. They abandoned me, Richard. They canceled my flight, left me with no money, no phone. That wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. Richard nodded slowly. You're right, but wouldn't you like to know what they are doing now? How they are? Why do you insist on this? I asked, feeling a mix of frustration and pain. Because I want you to see something. Richard took his phone from the nightstand and typed something. Then he showed me the screen. It was an Instagram account, Pamela's profile. How? I started to ask. I searched their names. It wasn't hard. Pamela Daniels, lives in Miami, works in marketing, married to a Derek Hamilton. I looked at the screen with my heart racing. There was my daughter. Photos of her in expensive restaurants, on paradise beaches, at social events, always smiling, always perfect. Richard swiped the screen. And look at this photo. It's from 2 weeks ago. It was a photo of Pamela with a tall, blonde man in a dark suit. They were at what looked like a charity gala. The caption read, "Wonderful night supporting the Foundation Against Childhood Cancer. Thank you, Derek, for being my partner in this life. #blessed, #charity, #Miami." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. My daughter was organizing charity events while her own mother had been abandoned at an airport. And now look at this one, Richard said, showing me another photo. It was Thomas. He was on a golf course with other men, all dressed in expensive sportswear. The caption read, "Closing deals on the green. This is how it's done, gentlemen. #your business, #views, #golf, #success, #Coral Gables." My son, the man who had left me stranded, was enjoying his perfect life as if I had never existed. You see, Richard said softly, they are fine, better than fine. They don't miss you. They aren't looking for you. They go on with their lives as if you were never part of them. I handed the phone back, feeling nauseous. Why are you showing me this? To hurt me more? No, Richard said. So you realize you made the right decision. So you don't feel guilt. So you know that when they find out what you now have, it will be too late. I looked at him confused. What do you mean, when they find out? Richard smiled in that calculated way I already knew. I am thinking of making a public donation to some major foundation, and at the ceremony introducing you as my wife, Mrs. Mary Daniels Grant, heir to my fortune. My heart skipped a beat. Richard, no. Wouldn't that be justice? He completed. Exactly. Imagine. Pamela and Thomas watch the news. They see your photo, see your name, discover that the mother they abandoned is now a multimillionaire. He paused. Do you think they will continue ignoring you? I got up from the bed, walking to the window. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me wanted exactly that. I wanted my children to know. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of the pain I had felt. But another part of me resisted, because that would be revenge, and revenge had never been part of who I was. I don't know if I can do that, I said finally. You don't have to decide now, Richard replied, but think about it, because trust me, Mary, the day they find out, they are going to try to contact you. They will invent excuses. They will cry and beg for forgiveness, and you will have to decide if you forgive them or if you close the door like they closed it on you. That night I couldn't sleep. Richard's words echoed in my head. The photos of my children, so happy, so oblivious to my existence. I got up at 3 a.m. and went down to the kitchen. I made chamomile tea and sat on the terrace, watching the city lights in the distance. While I tell all this, I wonder, where are you listening from? Write the name of your city in the comments. Martha found me there when she came down at 6 to start her day. Couldn't sleep, Mrs. Grant? She asked with concern. No, I admitted, too much on my mind. She sat opposite me. Can I tell you something? Of course, Martha. I've been working for Mr. Grant since Mrs. Catherine got sick. 6 years. I saw him suffer in a way no human being should suffer. I saw him become a shadow of himself. She paused. But since you arrived, I've seen him smile again, wake up wanting to live one more day. You gave him back something he thought he had lost forever. I felt tears in my eyes. And what was that? Hope, Martha said simply. You gave him back the hope that life could still be good, even at the end. I took her hand. Thank you for telling me that. It's the truth, she replied. And now tell me, what has you so worried? I sighed. My kids. Richard showed me their social media. They are fine, better than fine. And me? I still don't exist to them. Martha nodded with understanding. You know what I think? That you deserve people who value you by being present, not when they discover you have something they want. Her words were simple but profound. You're right, I said. Completely right. The following days were quiet. Richard slept a lot. The doctor came 3 times a week to adjust his meds, check his vitals. He always left the room with the same expression, poorly disguised worry. One afternoon in late March, while I was reading next to Richard's bed, he woke up, startled. Mary? He called with a weak voice. I'm here, I said, taking his hand. I had a dream, he murmured. I dreamt Catherine and I were at our house in Vermont. It was autumn. The leaves were red and gold. She took my hand and told me she was proud of me. I stroked his gray hair. I am sure she is proud. Maybe, he said, but what surprised me was that in the dream, you were there too, sitting on the porch, knitting. And Catherine walked up to you and said, Thank you for taking care of him. Thank you for not leaving him alone. I felt a chill. She said that? Yes. She approves of you. I think she is happy I found you. I didn't know what to answer. I just leaned in and kissed his forehead. Rest, I whispered. I'm going to be here. I know, he murmured, closing his eyes again. And in that moment, I understood something. This wasn't just an agreement anymore. It wasn't just mutual company. I really loved this man. Not in the traditional romantic way, but I loved him like you love someone who saved you when you needed it most, and I was willing to accompany him to the end, no matter how much it hurt. April brought a tense calm. Richard had days where he seemed to improve a little, where he could sit on his bedroom balcony and drink coffee while we watched the sunrise together. But those days were becoming less frequent. Dr. Morrison, his personal physician, pulled me aside one morning after one of his routine visits. Mrs. Grant, I need to speak with you, he said seriously. We went down to the study. He closed the door carefully and asked me to sit. Mr. Grant is entering the final phase, he said bluntly. His lungs are functioning at less than 40%. The cancer has spread to other organs. We estimate he has between 2 and 4 months left, maybe less. I felt my breath catch. I knew this moment would come, but hearing it out loud was different. Is there anything we can do? I asked, my voice trembling. Just keep him comfortable, control the pain, and be with him. That is the most important thing now. I nodded, unable to speak. Dr. Morrison put a hand on my shoulder. You are doing an extraordinary job, Mrs. Grant. Richard has told me on multiple occasions how much he values your presence. You are giving him what he needs most, dignity and company. After the doctor left, I stayed in the study, looking out the window. The trees in the garden swayed in the breeze. The flowers the gardener had planted weeks ago were now in full bloom. Life went on, indifferent to human pain. I went up to Richard's room. He was awake, looking at the ceiling. "You spoke with Morrison," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Did he tell you how much time I have left?" I sat on the bed next to him. 2 to 4 months. Richard nodded slowly. "Less than I hoped, more than I deserve." "Don't say that." "It's true," he paused. "Mary, there is something I need to tell you, something I've been putting off." My heart raced. "What is it?" Richard sat up with difficulty. I arranged the pillows behind his back. He took a deep breath before speaking. "My nephew James came to visit me 3 weeks ago. You were at the market with Martha. That's why you didn't see him." I frowned. Richard had never mentioned that visit. "James is my older sister's son. He's 42, works in finance in New York, or at least that's what he says. The truth is, he has always lived off loans he never returns and favors he never repays." There was bitterness in his voice. "He came because he found out I'm sick. I don't know how, probably bribed someone at the doctor's office. And he came with a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" I asked, feeling a bad premonition. "He wanted me to change my will, to leave him at least half my properties. He told me it was the right thing, that he is blood family, that he has kids to support." Richard let out a bitter laugh. I told him no, that my decisions were already made. And do you know what he did? I shook my head. He threatened me. He told me he was going to investigate my marriage, that he was going to hire lawyers to prove you took advantage of a sick man, that it was a marriage under duress, that I wasn't in my right mind when I married you. I felt my blood run cold. "Richard, I kicked him out of the house," he continued. "I told him if he came near again, I'd call the police. But I know he won't stay quiet. He's going to try something, probably after I die." I stood up, pacing back and forth. And what if he's right? What if a judge determines our marriage wasn't valid? "He won't," Richard said firmly. "I have all the documents in order. Psychological evaluations from 2 independent psychiatrists certifying I was of sound mind when we married. Testimonies from Martha, from the driver, from my lawyer, videos of the ceremony. Everything is bulletproof." He paused. "But there is something else you need to know. Something about James and about your children." I stopped cold. "My children? What do they have to do with this?" Richard signaled for me to come closer. He took his phone and showed me the screen. It was a text message from an unknown number dated 3 days ago. The message read, "Mr. Grant, I am Thomas Daniels, son of Mary Daniels. I need to speak with you urgently about my mother. Please call me at this number." I felt the world spin. "Thomas wrote to you?" "Yes." And he wasn't the only one. Richard swiped the screen. Another message, this one from Pamela. "Mr. Grant, excuse the intrusion. I am Pamela, daughter of Mary Daniels. We have been trying to contact our mother without success. We know she is with you. Please let us speak with her. It is urgent." I slumped into the chair next to the bed. How did they know?" "James," Richard said with disgust. "After I kicked him out, he dug around, discovered your full name, looked for information about you, and he found your children on social media. He wrote to them, told them his uncle had married a Mexican-American woman named Mary Daniels, probably hoping they would help create a scandal to invalidate the will." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "And what did you answer them?" "Nothing," said Richard. "I ignored their messages because I wanted it to be you who decided if you want to talk to them or not." I looked at the messages again. Thomas had written 4 times, Pamela 3, all in the last week, all with the same tone of feigned urgency. "They don't want to talk to me," I said bitterly. "They want to know if it's true I married a rich man. They want to ensure an opportunity doesn't slip away." "Probably," admitted Richard, But don't you want to confirm it? Don't you want to hear what excuses they'll invent? I shook my head. No, I don't want to hear anything from them. They abandoned me, and now that they think I have something worth having, they appear. No, absolutely not. Richard smiled with satisfaction. That's my girl. He took my hand. Mary, I need you to promise me something. When I die, they will intensify their attempts to contact you. They will show up at the door of this house. They will call, write, maybe even involve lawyers. And I need you to be strong, not to let yourself be manipulated by guilt or false regret. I promise you, I said firmly. Good, because I have one last gift for you. Richard pointed to the desk in his room. In the middle drawer, there is a manila envelope. Bring it to me. I went to the desk and found the envelope. It was thick, heavy. I took it to Richard. He opened it and pulled out several documents. They were photographs, printed on high-quality paper. He showed me the first one. It was a photo of Thomas in a very expensive restaurant in Coral Gables. According to the timestamp, it had been taken 2 weeks after they abandoned me at the airport. Thomas was toasting with champagne, laughing with other businessmen. You hired someone to watch them? I whispered, understanding. Yes, Richard admitted without shame, a private investigator. I wanted to know who you were dealing with. I wanted evidence of their true character. He showed me more photos. Pamela shopping in luxury stores. Thomas playing golf. Both at social events, always smiling, always happy. And then a photo that broke my heart. It was of Pamela sitting in a cafe with a friend. The investigator had managed to record their conversation. There was a transcript attached. I read the words out loud, though each one hurt. Friend, and your mom? Did she go back to Kansas? Pamela, yeah, I guess. Honestly, it was a relief when she left. Thomas and I were fed up, always with that victim attitude, reminding us everything she sacrificed for us, as if we had asked her to. Friend, oh, but she's your mom. Pamela, I know, but we're grown up now. We don't need her constantly reminding us everything she did. We already paid her, you know. We sent her money for years. We're square. I stopped reading. I couldn't continue. Tears rolled down my cheeks uncontrollably. We already paid her, I repeated with a broken voice. That's what my daughter thinks. That motherhood is something you pay off. That love is settled with bank transfers. Richard hugged me while I cried on his shoulder. I cried for the mother I was, for the mother I thought had been good, for the children I thought I had raised with values. Now you understand why I insist you give them nothing, murmured Richard. Because they don't see you as their mother. They see you as an obligation they already fulfilled. I pulled away, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. You're right. You are completely right. Richard put the photos back in the envelope. Keep this. Store it in a safe place. If you ever doubt, if you ever feel the temptation to forgive them, look at these photos. Remember who they really are. I took the envelope with trembling hands. Thank you for showing me the truth. You don't have to thank me, he said. Just promise me you will be happy, that you will live the life you deserve, that you will not let anyone make you feel small ever again. I promise, I said, kissing his cheek. That night, I put the envelope in the safe in my room, along with the legal documents Richard had given me, along with his mother's pearl necklace. I sat on the balcony watching the stars. I still wonder if I did the right thing. What about you? What would you have done in my place? And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. My children hadn't just abandoned me at an airport. They had abandoned me emotionally years ago. I had just been too blind, too hopeful to see it. But now I saw it, and I wasn't going to let them hurt me again. Never again. May arrived with a golden light that illuminated Richard's room every afternoon. He spent most of the time asleep now, his breaths becoming shallower, more labored. Dr. Morrison came every day. He no longer spoke of treatments, only of morphine, of comfort, of time. I had become his full-time nurse. Martha helped me, but I insisted on doing most of the care. I changed his sheets, helped him drink water, read him books in a low voice when he was awake. Sometimes he just wanted me to sit by his side, holding his hand. "Don't be afraid," he told me weakly. "When the time comes, I'll be ready." But I was afraid of losing him, afraid of being alone again, afraid of facing the world that would come after. One afternoon in mid-May, Martha came up to the room with a worried expression. "Mrs. Grant, there is someone at the door. 2 people. They say they are your children." I felt my heart stop. "What?" "A young woman and a man. They say their names are Pamela and Thomas. They insist they need to speak with you urgently." Richard, who had been dozing, opened his eyes. "Do you want me to call security?" he asked with a raspy voice. I looked toward the window. From there I could see the main entrance. A silver car was parked in front of the gates. 2 figures waited next to it. My children. It had been 7 months since the last time I saw them. 7 months since they left me in that airport. "No," I said finally. "Don't call security. I'll go down." Richard took my hand. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I need to do this. I need to close this chapter." He nodded weakly. "Then go. But remember who you are now. Remember your worth." "I will," I promised. I went down the stairs slowly, each step heavy as lead. Martha followed me at a prudent distance. When I reached the front door, I took a deep breath before opening it. There they were. Thomas, my oldest son, dressed in an elegant gray suit, his black hair slicked back. He looked prosperous, successful. Pamela, my daughter, in an ivory dress and sunglasses she took off upon seeing me. She was thinner than I remembered, harder. "Mom," Thomas said, taking a step forward. I raised a hand. "Stop right there. Don't cross that threshold." Both of them froze. Pamela seemed genuinely surprised. "Mom, please," she said softly. "We just want to talk to you. We've been trying to contact you for weeks." "I know," I replied coldly. "Richard showed me your messages, every single one of them." Thomas cleared his throat. "Then you know we're worried. You disappeared without saying anything. You didn't go back to Kansas. You didn't answer your phone." "I didn't have a phone," I said, letting every word drop like a stone. "Remember? I left it in your guest room, Thomas, along with my wallet while you 2 canceled my flight." Pamela looked down. Thomas, however, maintained eye contact. "It was a misunderstanding," he said. "We were angry. You said things during the visit that hurt us. We acted impulsively, but we never wanted—" "Never wanted what?" I interrupted, feeling the rage bubbling in my chest. "Never wanted to abandon me in a strange city without money, without a way to communicate, without a way to get home?" "We knew you would find a solution," Thomas said, and something in his tone told me he actually believed it. "You're strong. You always have been." I let out a bitter laugh. "That is your defense? That I am strong? So it was okay to leave me stranded there?" Pamela stepped forward. "Mom, please, we understand you're upset, but months have passed. We want to fix this. We want you to come home." "Home?" I repeated. "Which home? The one where you made it perfectly clear I wasn't welcome anymore?" "That's not true," Pamela protested. "We never said that." I walked toward them, stepping completely out onto the porch. "You didn't have to say it. Your actions spoke for you. But tell me something, Pamela. Is this about me, or is it because you found out I married a rich man?" She blinked, surprised. "We found out about your marriage, yes. Some guy named James contacted us, told us his uncle, Richard Grant, married you, that you were living in a mansion in Coral Gables. And that was when you decided that suddenly I was important again," I said with contempt. Thomas stepped forward. "That's not fair, Mom. We care about you. An unknown man, terminally ill according to what we heard, marries you within months of meeting you. How did you expect us to react? We came to make sure you're okay, that you aren't being manipulated." "Manipulated?" I laughed in disbelief. "You want to talk about manipulation? You invited me to visit just to make me feel like a burden. You treated me with disdain for 2 weeks. And then, when you didn't want me there anymore, you dumped me like garbage." "It wasn't like that," Pamela shouted, and for the first time I saw real emotion on her face. "You don't understand. Our whole lives you reminded us how much you sacrificed for us, how much you worked, how much you gave up. You made us feel guilty for existing." Her words hit me like a punch. "Is that what you think? That I blamed you for existing?" "Yes." Pamela had tears in her eyes now. "Every time you wanted something from us, you reminded us of everything you had done. I worked 3 jobs to pay for your school. I sold my only gold ring for your graduation. Always, always, the martyr." I recoiled as if she had slapped me. I just wanted them to know I loved them, that everything I did was out of love. "Well, it didn't feel like love," Thomas said harshly. "It felt like a debt we could never pay. That's why we moved so far away. That's why we limited the calls, because every conversation turned into a reminder of how much we owed you." I felt tears rolling down my cheeks. Was it true? Had I done that without realizing it? "But that doesn't justify what you did," I said with a broken voice. "Even if you felt that way, it doesn't justify abandoning me." Pamela wiped her tears. "You're right. It doesn't justify it. And I'm sorry. I really am sorry, Mom." Thomas lowered his head, too. "I'm sorry, too. We acted badly. We were angry, and we acted in the worst way possible." For a moment, there was only silence. The wind moved the palm fronds. A bird sang somewhere in the garden. And then Pamela said, "We want you to come home with us. We can start over. We can go to family therapy if necessary. But please, don't stay with this man you barely know." There it was, the real reason for their visit. "This man," I repeated. "His name is Richard, and he saved me when you abandoned me. He gave me a home when I had nowhere to go. He treated me with more respect in one day than you have in years." "He is terminally ill," Thomas said, "and you are his wife. When he dies, you are going to inherit everything. Don't you see how that looks? Don't you see people will think you took advantage of a vulnerable man?" "Let them think what they want," I said firmly. "I know the truth. Richard and I helped each other. He gave me security, and I gave him company. It was an honest agreement between 2 lonely people." "An agreement?" Pamela seemed horrified. "You married for an agreement, not for love?" "Love takes many forms," I replied. "And yes, I came to love Richard, not in the way you understand, but I love him. And he loves me more than you have loved me in years." Thomas shook his head. "We can't allow this. It is our responsibility to protect you." "Protect me?" I laughed without humor. "Now I am your responsibility? How convenient. When I needed you, I was the insufferable martyr. Now that I have something, I am your responsibility." I took a step back toward the door. "I want you to leave. Now." "Mom, please," Pamela started. "No," my voice resonated with a strength I didn't know I had. "You had 7 months to find me, 7 months to worry, but you only appear now when you know I'm married to a rich man. Don't underestimate me. I know exactly what you want." Thomas clenched his jaw. "You are making a mistake." "Maybe," I admitted, "but it is my mistake, my life, my decision, and you no longer have a voice or a vote in it." Pamela covered her mouth, crying. "So that's it? We aren't your family anymore?" I felt something break inside me, something that had been holding me up for 60 years. "You stopped being my family the day you left me at that airport." I just took a while to realize it. I turned around to enter the house. Thomas made one last attempt. "If you come back with us now, we will forget all this. But if you stay, if you really inherit that man's fortune, don't expect anything from us." I stopped at the threshold. Without turning back, I said, "I never expected anything from you. That was my mistake, but I won't make it again." I entered the house and closed the door. I heard the car engine start. I heard them drive away, and then I collapsed. Martha ran to me, holding me while I cried on the foyer floor. I cried for the children I thought I had. I cried for the mother I thought I was. I cried for the lost years, for the broken hopes, for the love I gave that was never enough. When I could finally stand up, I climbed the stairs with trembling legs. Richard was awake, waiting for me. "How was it?" he asked softly. "Terrible, perfect, necessary." I sat on the bed next to him. Richard hugged me with the weak arms he had left. "I am proud of you," he murmured. "Me too," I whispered. "For the first time in my life, I am proud of myself." That night, Richard got worse. His breathing became irregular. Dr. Morrison came and increased the morphine dosage. "It is a matter of days," he told me in a whisper. I nodded, unable to speak. The next 5 days were the hardest of my life. Richard drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes he recognized me. Sometimes he called for Catherine. Sometimes he just moaned in pain until the morphine took effect. I didn't leave his side. I slept in an armchair next to his bed. I held his hand. I talked to him even though I wasn't sure he could hear me. "Thank you for finding me," I told him. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for giving me the strength to know who I am." On the 5th day, just after sunrise, Richard opened his eyes clearly for the last time. "Mary," he whispered. "I'm here," I said, leaning close. "You lived your life for others. Now live it for yourself. Promise me." "I promise." He smiled, a weak but genuine smile. "Good girl." And then he closed his eyes. His last breath was a soft sigh, almost peaceful. Richard Grant died at 6:14 in the morning on May 22, 2024, with his hand in mine. And I, Mrs. Mary Daniels Grant, sat next to his body for a whole hour, holding his cold hand, crying tears that were as much sadness as they were gratitude. Because this man, in his last months of life, had given me more than anyone had given me in 60 years. He had given me my dignity back. The days after Richard's death passed in a strange fog. The funeral was small, intimate, just as he had requested. It was just Martha, the driver, Mr. Morrison, the lawyer, Dr. Morrison, and me. No ostentatious flowers, no long speeches, just a simple ceremony in a quiet cemetery where Catherine already rested. When they lowered the coffin into the earth, next to his wife's, I placed the cloth handkerchief Richard had given me that first day at the airport on top of it, the same one he had used to wipe the blood when he coughed, the same one that had become a silent symbol of our connection. "Rest beside her," I whispered, "and thank you for everything." Back at the house, Mr. Morrison asked to meet in the study. He was an older man, 70 years old, with gold-rimmed glasses and an impeccable suit. He had been Richard's lawyer for 30 years. "Mrs. Grant," he began with a formal but kind voice, "I know this is a very difficult time for you, but there are legal matters we must attend to." I nodded, sitting in one of the leather armchairs. Martha had brought me a tea that I held in my hands without drinking. Mr. Morrison opened his briefcase and took out several documents. Mr. Grant was very meticulous with his estate planning. Everything is in perfect order. There will be no legal problems, I assure you. He extended the first document toward me. "This is the will. As you already know, Mr. Grant left you the entirety of his assets. This property, currently valued at $4.4 million. The 5 apartment buildings in Los Angeles, valued collectively at $12.8 million. The investments in various funds, amounting to $8.2 million. And personal bank accounts totaling approximately $3 million. He paused. "In total, Mrs. Grant, you are now the owner of an estate valued at approximately $28,400,000. I listened to the numbers without really being able to process them. $28 million. It was an amount my mind couldn't comprehend. 8 months ago, I was crying on an airport floor without a single dollar. "And is there any legal dispute?" I asked, remembering the threats from the nephew, James. Mr. Morrison smiled slightly. Mr. James Grant attempted to file an objection alleging undue influence, but we have exhaustive documentation proving Mr. Richard Grant was of sound mind when he married you and when he updated his will. Psychological evaluations, testimonies from independent doctors, videos of the ceremony, everything. He pulled out another document. Furthermore, Mr. Grant left very clear instructions. If anyone in his family attempts to dispute the will, they are automatically excluded from a trust fund of $500,000 that he left specifically for family charity. James dropped his objection as soon as his lawyer explained the implications. I felt a huge relief. So everything is resolved? Completely. The property transfer documents are already in process. In approximately 2 weeks, everything will be officially in your name. Mr. Morrison leaned forward. Mrs. Grant, if I may offer some personal advice, you are now a very wealthy woman. That will attract attention. Some people will want to get close to you for the wrong reasons. I recommend you be careful, trust few people, and consider hiring a trusted financial advisor to help you manage these assets. Could you recommend someone? Of course. In fact, I have 3 names I can give you, people Mr. Grant worked with for years and whom he trusted fully. I nodded, grateful. Thank you. Mr. Morrison stood up. If you need anything, do not hesitate to call me. Mr. Grant left me instructions to assist you in everything you need during the first year at no additional cost. Consider it his last gift to you. After the lawyer left, I stayed alone in the study. I looked around. This house, this study, all of this was now mine. I got up and walked to the mantelpiece where the photo of Richard and Catherine stood. I took it in my hands. I will take good care of everything, I told the photo. I promise. The days turned into weeks. June arrived with its hot afternoons and golden sunsets. I began to adapt slowly to my new reality. I hired one of the financial advisors Mr. Morrison recommended, a man named David Chen, 50 years old, with 25 years of experience in wealth management. We met 3 times a week for the first month. He explained every investment, every property, every account. He taught me how to read financial reports, understand yields, make informed decisions. Mrs. Grant, he told me in one of our meetings, you have a very solid portfolio here. With the right management, this estate will not only maintain itself, but grow, generating enough passive income for you to live very comfortably without touching the principal capital. How much is enough? I asked, still unused to talking about money in these amounts. David did some calculations. With the current yield of your investments and the rents from the buildings in Los Angeles, you are generating approximately $150,000 a month. After taxes, that's close to $90,000 a month in disposable income. $90,000 a month. I, who had lived on less than $1,000 a month for most of my life. And what should I do with that money? I asked. David smiled. Whatever you want, Mrs. Grant. Travel, invest more, donate to charity, live. The point is that you now have complete freedom. Freedom. That word echoed in my mind for days. One afternoon in early July, while having coffee in the garden, my phone rang. It was a number from Kansas I didn't recognize. I hesitated, but finally answered. Hello? Mary? It was Mrs. Higgins's voice, my old neighbor. Honey, how are you? I'm good, Mrs. Higgins. Is everything okay over there? Yes, I'm calling because, well, some people came asking for you. Your children. They came 2 weeks ago. Wanted to know if I knew anything about you. If you had come back. My heart raced. And what did you tell them? I told them the truth, that I know nothing. That you called me months ago to say you were fine, but I haven't heard more. They seemed desperate. Thank you for not telling them anything else, I said. Mary, are you in trouble? Because if you need help... No, Mrs. Higgins, I'm not in trouble. Quite the opposite. I'm fine, very fine. I just need time away. Do you understand? There was a pause. I understand, honey. Take care of yourself. You too. I hung up and sat thinking. Thomas and Pamela had gone all the way to Kansas looking for me. After I confronted them, after I closed the door, they kept trying to contact me. But it didn't move me anymore. I knew the truth, and that truth had set me free. In late July, I made a decision. I called Martha to the living room. Martha, I have something to propose to you. She sat opposite me with that kind expression she always had. Tell me, Mrs. Grant. I've been thinking. This house is too big for me alone. And you have worked for Richard for years, always with loyalty, always with affection. I want to raise your salary considerably." Martha blinked, surprised. "Ma'am, you already pay me very well." "It's not enough. From now on, your salary will be $5,000 a month. And additionally, I want you to have full health benefits for you and your family. And I want to set up a fund for your grandkids' education, $50,000 for each one." Martha covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Grant, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just accept, because without you, these last months would have been impossible. You taught me how this house works. You accompanied me when I cared for Richard. You gave me your friendship when I needed it most." Martha stood up and hugged me. We both cried together. That night, alone in my room, I opened the manila envelope Richard had given me. The photos of my children, the transcripts of their conversations. I looked at them one last time, and then, one by one, I tore them up. Not out of rage, not out of revenge, but out of liberation. I no longer needed to cling to that pain. I no longer needed proof of their betrayal to justify my decisions. I knew who I was now, and that was enough. I made one more decision that night. I called Mr. Morrison. "Mr. Morrison, I want to do something. I want to establish a foundation." "What kind of foundation?" he asked with interest. "A foundation for older women in vulnerable situations, women who have been abandoned by their families, women who need support, resources, dignity." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, "I think Mr. Grant would have loved that idea." "I love it too," I said. "I want to call it the Catherine and Richard Grant Foundation, in their honor. It's perfect. I will start preparing the documents. And I want to make the first donation of $1 million. Mr. Morrison cleared his throat. "It will be an honor to help you with this, Mrs. Grant." After hanging up, I sat on my bedroom balcony. It was a clear night. The stars shone brightly over Miami. I thought about my life, about the woman I was, about the woman I was now. I thought about Thomas and Pamela, and for the first time, I felt peace. I didn't hate them. I didn't wish them ill. They simply weren't part of my life anymore, and that was okay. I had learned something fundamental. Love is not owed. Respect is not negotiated, and dignity has no price. Richard had taught me that. He had given me the tools to see myself clearly, to understand my worth. And now, with those tools, I was going to build something new, something meaningful, not to prove anything to anyone, but to honor the second chance life had given me. I took a deep breath, feeling the warm night air filling my lungs. For the first time in 60 years, I felt like my life really belonged to me, and that feeling was more valuable than any fortune. August arrived with afternoon storms that cooled the hot Miami air. I had started to find a new routine. I got up early, had breakfast in the garden, then worked with David Chen reviewing investments. In the afternoons, I met with the team helping me establish the Catherine and Richard Grant Foundation. We had rented a small office in Coral Gables. I hired 3 people, a social worker, an administrator, and a lawyer specializing in family cases. Together, we were creating a pilot program to help women 50 and older facing family abandonment, economic abuse, or simply extreme loneliness. The work filled me with purpose. Every story I heard reminded me of my own story. Every woman we helped was, in some way, the Mary Daniels who cried in that airport. One afternoon in mid-August, while reviewing aid applications in my home office, my phone rang. It was an unknown Florida number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello? Mrs. Mary Daniels Grant?" It was a male voice, formal. "Yes, this is she. Who is calling?" "My name is Robert Hastings. I am an attorney. I represent Mrs. Pamela Daniels Hamilton." My heart stopped. "What do you want?" "Mrs. Hamilton has hired me to establish contact with you. She's tried to communicate via various means without success. She requests a formal meeting to discuss important family matters." I closed my eyes. "Mr. Hastings, tell your client I have no interest in meeting with her. We already had our conversation. There is nothing more to discuss. Mrs. Grant, I understand your reluctance, but Mrs. Hamilton insists there are misunderstandings that need clearing up. Furthermore, there are legal matters that— Legal matters, I interrupted. Are you threatening me? No, of course not, he hurried to say. I only wanted to inform you that Mrs. Hamilton is going through difficulties and hopes that, as her mother, you could— I hung up without letting him finish. My hands were shaking. Difficulties? Now Pamela had difficulties and expected me to help her. I called Mr. Morrison immediately. Mr. Morrison, I just received a call from a lawyer representing my daughter. Can they try anything legal against me? Mr. Morrison cleared his throat. What kind of legal action did he mention? He didn't mention anything specific. He just spoke of legal matters in a vague way. Let me investigate. Can you give me the lawyer's name? I gave him the name. Morrison promised to find out what was happening. 2 days later, I received his call. Mrs. Grant, I made some inquiries. Turns out your daughter and her husband are facing serious financial problems. Mr. Derek Hamilton lost his job 4 months ago. He worked at an investment firm that went under, and apparently they had been living well beyond their means. They have significant debts. I sat down slowly. How much? Approximately $200,000 in credit card debt, a mortgage in arrears on their condo, and a luxury car about to be repossessed. And now she thinks I'm going to bail her out, I said bitterly. That seems to be the case, but legally you have no obligation. She is an adult. Her debts are her responsibility. And my son? Do you know anything about Thomas? Morrison paused. Yes, I investigated him too. Your son is having trouble at work. Apparently, there were irregularities in some contracts he handled. Nothing criminal yet, but his reputation is damaged. He is facing potential civil lawsuits. I felt no satisfaction hearing this, just a deep sadness. Do they know you investigated, I asked. No, and they don't need to know. I just wanted you to be informed. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. After hanging up, I sat in the study for a long time. My children, who had been so proud, so successful, so above me, were now falling, not because of me, but because of the natural consequences of their own decisions. Pamela and Derek had lived for appearances, spending money they didn't have to maintain an image of success. Thomas had taken shortcuts in his work, probably pressured by that same need to show off. And now, when things were crumbling, they wanted their mother to rescue them, the same mother they had abandoned without a second thought. Life always collects its debts. That phrase resonated in my mind. Richard had said it to me once. Life always collects its debts, Mary. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it always does. A week later, I received a text message. It was from Pamela. She had gotten my number somehow. The message read, Mom, please, I need to talk to you. Derek lost his job. We are about to lose our apartment. We just need a loan. I promise we will pay you back. Please, I'm your daughter. I read the message 3 times, every word designed to manipulate. I'm your daughter, as if that erased everything that had happened. I didn't reply. The next day, another message arrived, this one from Thomas. Mom, I know you're upset, but I need your help. I'm facing legal trouble over some contracts. I need to hire a good lawyer. I know you have money now. Please, we are family. We are family. Those words they had ignored when they abandoned me, that they had forgotten when speaking of me with contempt to their friends. Now they remembered them. Now family mattered. I didn't answer that message either. The days passed. The messages became more frequent, more desperate. From Pamela. Mom, please, just $50,000. It's nothing to you now. From Thomas. I understand you're angry, but you can't let your own son go to jail. From Pamela. If you don't help us, we lose everything. Is that what you want? To see us on the street? From Thomas. I thought you were a better person than this. That last message was the one that hurt the most. I thought you were a better person than this. As if being a good person meant letting myself be manipulated. As if a mother's love came with the obligation to rescue irresponsible adults from the consequences of their own actions. That night I wrote a reply, the only one I would send them. Thomas and Pamela. For 60 years, I tried to be a good mother. I worked, I sacrificed, I gave everything I had. You decided that wasn't enough. You decided I was a burden. You abandoned me when I was most vulnerable. Now you are facing the consequences of your own decisions, and you want me to rescue you? But being a good mother does not mean allowing myself to be disrespected. It does not mean rescuing you from your own irresponsibility. I wish you the best. I hope you find a way to solve your problems. But it will not be with my money, nor with my presence. Take care, Mary Daniels. I pressed send before I could regret it. Immediately, my phone started ringing. It was Pamela. I didn't answer. Then Thomas. I didn't answer either. The messages came in an avalanche. You can't do this. You are our mother. We are going to lose everything because of you. I blocked their numbers. The next day, I changed my phone number. I only gave it to Martha, Mr. Morrison, David Chen, and the people at my foundation. Thomas and Pamela could keep trying to contact me. They could keep sending lawyers, but I was no longer available to them. September arrived with cooler air. The Catherine and Richard Grant Foundation officially opened its doors. We held a small ceremony with local press coverage. I gave a brief speech. This foundation is born from personal experience. It is born from the knowledge that there are women who, after giving a whole life to their families, find themselves alone and vulnerable. Women who deserve dignity, support, and a second chance. In honor of Richard and Catherine Grant, who gave me my second chance, I dedicate this work to all women who need to know their life is not over, that there is still hope. Photos of the event appeared in the local paper. My full name, Mrs. Mary Daniels Grant. My story, recent widow, heir to a fortune, founder of a charity. I knew Thomas and Pamela would see those photos. They would see my name in the paper. They would see the definitive confirmation that their mother, the woman they had discarded, was now someone important. But I didn't care about their reaction anymore, because I finally understood something fundamental. Justice isn't always dramatic. It doesn't always come with epic confrontations or elaborate revenge. Sometimes justice is simply living well. It is finding peace. It is using pain to create something good. My children chose their path. They chose superficiality, appearances, selfishness. And that path led them exactly where they deserved to be, facing the natural consequences of their choices. I chose a different path. I chose dignity. I chose to use my fortune to help others. I chose to live with purpose. And that difference said it all. One afternoon in late September, I was sitting in the garden eating ice cream when Martha approached. "Mrs. Grant, someone left this at the gate." She handed me an envelope. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Pamela. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Mom, we lost the condo. Derek and I moved to a smaller place, much smaller. I had to sell my car, my designer clothes, everything. I am working a job I hate, earning a fraction of what I used to make. And every day I think of you, of how I treated you, of what we did to you. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't expect your help. I just want you to know that I finally understand. I understand what it was to work hard all your life. I understand what it was to sacrifice for us. I understand the pain we caused you. And I'm sorry. I truly am sorry, even though I know it's too late. Pamela." I folded the letter slowly. I felt tears in my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of closure. Pamela finally understood. She had finally experienced in her own flesh what it was to struggle, to work hard, to lose comforts. But her understanding came too late, not because I wanted to punish her, but because we weren't the same people anymore. I had changed. I had grown. I had become someone who no longer needed her children's validation to feel valuable. I put the letter in a drawer in my room. Maybe someday I would answer, maybe not. But for now, my life moved forward, with purpose, with dignity, with peace. And that was more than I ever dreamed possible. Today is December of 2024. It has been 14 months since that terrible afternoon at Miami Airport. 14 months since my children abandoned me. 14 months since I met Richard Grant. I am sitting in the same garden where Richard and I drank coffee every morning. The Christmas tree Martha decorated glows softly through the living room windows. The white lights reflect in the stone fountain in the courtyard. Everything is calm, beautiful, peaceful. I am 60 years old. Soon I will turn 61, and for the first time in my life, I don't fear aging, because now I know age doesn't take away my value. On the contrary, it has given it to me. The Catherine and Richard Grant Foundation has helped 43 women in these last 4 months, 43 women who, like me, felt invisible, discarded, worthless. We have given them temporary financial support, legal advice, therapy, and most importantly, dignity. One of those women is named Rosa. She is 65. Her children left her in a nursing home 3 years ago and never visited again. When she arrived at our foundation, she barely spoke. She had that empty look I recognized immediately, the same one I saw in my own reflection a year ago. Now Rosa lives in an apartment the foundation helped her get. She works in the office as a volunteer, helping other women who arrive with their stories of abandonment. And when she smiles, her eyes shine with something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. "You saved my life," she tells me. "You saved yourself. I just showed you that you were worth it." Those conversations fill my soul in a way raising my own children never did. Because these women choose me. They choose to trust me. They choose to listen to me. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine gratitude. I have traveled a bit. In October, I went to Paris for 2 weeks. I had always dreamed of seeing the Eiffel Tower, walking the Champs-Élysées, drinking coffee in a French bistro. And finally, I did it. Alone, but not feeling lonely. Enjoying every moment, every sight, every experience. In November, I went to Vermont, to the town where Richard and Catherine had their country house. The house still exists. Now it is mine, too. It is a beautiful cabin, surrounded by trees that in autumn dress in red and gold, exactly as Richard had described in his dream. I stayed there a week, walking through the woods, reading by the fireplace, feeling the presence of Richard and Catherine in every corner of that house, full of memories. One night, while watching the fire, I felt a deep peace, and I spoke to Richard as if he could hear me. "I kept my promise," I told him. "I am living. I am happy. I am using your gift the right way." And I swear I felt a warm breeze run through the room, even though all the windows were closed, as if he were answering me, as if he were saying, "I know. I am proud of you." As for my children, I haven't heard from them since Pamela's letter in September. I don't know if they solved their financial problems. I don't know if Thomas avoided the legal trouble. I don't know how their marriages are, their lives. And it's okay not to know, because I finally understood something that took me 60 years to learn. Love is not proven with constant sacrifice. True love is proven with mutual respect, with reciprocity, with genuine presence. I gave them a mother's love. I gave them sacrifice, work, dedication. But they never gave me respect. They never gave me reciprocity. And when I needed them most, they weren't present. That is not a relationship of love. It is a relationship of debt. And I already paid enough. Did I forgive them? That is a complicated question. I feel no resentment toward them. I wish them no ill. If one day I read in the paper that they managed to get ahead, I will be happy for them. If one day I hear they faced more difficulties, I will feel a distant sadness, like you feel for strangers who suffer. But they are no longer part of my life. They no longer occupy that space in my heart I used to reserve for them. Is that forgiveness, or is it simply indifference? I don't know, and I have learned that I don't need to have all the answers. What I do know is this: I deserve people in my life who value me, who see me, who respect me. And if my own children can't give me that, there are other people who can. Like Martha, who has become my confidant and friend. Like the women of the foundation, who remind me daily why this work matters. Like David Chen, my financial advisor, who treats me with patience and respect while I learn to navigate this new world of finance. I have built a chosen family, not of blood, but of genuine connection. And that family fulfills me more than the biological one ever did. This morning, while having breakfast, I received a call from Mr. Morrison. "Mrs. Grant, I have news. Your daughter Pamela attempted to file a lawsuit alleging family negligence, basically arguing that you have a legal obligation to support her financially." I felt my stomach turn. And the judge dismissed the case immediately. There is no law obligating a parent to financially support adult children, especially when those children have a history of abandonment toward the parent. The judge even warned Pamela that filing frivolous lawsuits could result in sanctions. I closed my eyes, feeling a huge relief. "Thank you for informing me." "There is something else," Morrison continued. "After the hearing, Pamela asked the judge to pass a message to you." "What message?" "That she is sorry, that she finally understands you owe them nothing, and she hopes that someday, when she has demonstrated real change, you might consider not a full reconciliation, but at least a conversation." I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then I said, "Tell the judge I received the message, and that maybe someday, but not today." "Understood, Mrs. Grant." After hanging up, I went out to the garden. The December sun shone softly. Birds sang in the palm trees. The breeze smelled of jasmine. I sat on the same bench where Richard and I used to sit. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. Maybe someday Pamela and Thomas will really change. Maybe someday they will understand, not just intellectually, but in their hearts, the damage they caused. Maybe someday they will become people capable of loving without conditions, of giving without expecting, of valuing without needing a crisis first. And if that day comes, if I see genuine change sustained over years, not months, maybe I might consider a conversation. But it won't be because they need it. It will be because I choose to give it to them. Because now I am the one who decides. I am the one with the power. Not the power of money, though that helps, but the power of knowing who I am and what I deserve. Last night, while reviewing some documents in the study, I found something Richard had left hidden in one of the library books. It was a letter addressed to me, dated 3 days before he died. I opened it with trembling hands and read, "My dearest Mary, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and I hope you have kept your promise to live fully. I want you to know something. These last months with you were the best of my final years. You gave me back something I thought had died with Catherine, the capacity to feel that I mattered to someone. Not for my money, not for my name, but for simply being me. I left you my fortune not because you needed it, but because I knew you would use it well. I knew you wouldn't become someone consumed by greed or vanity. I knew you would find a way to turn your pain into purpose. And if your children ever try to contact you, remember this. True regret is proven with actions, not words. With sustained change, not empty promises. Don't let yourself be manipulated by guilt. You owe them nothing. But if they manage to show you they have really changed, you decide if you want to give them a chance. Because that is your power now. You decide. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for being exactly who you are. With all my love, Richard." I cried while reading that letter. I cried with gratitude. I cried with love. I cried with sadness because this wonderful man was no longer here. But I also smiled because his words confirmed something I already knew. I did the right thing. I made the right decisions. And I am living the life I deserve. Now, as the sun sets over Miami, as the Christmas lights start to twinkle in the garden, I feel at peace. I have learned so many things this year. I have learned that family isn't always blood. I have learned that self-love isn't selfishness. I have learned that setting boundaries is an act of survival, not cruelty. I have learned that sometimes justice doesn't require revenge. It just requires us to live well. I have learned that 60 years isn't too late to start over. And I have learned that I am enough. I always was. I just needed to believe it. If my story reaches your ears, I want you to know something. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how much pain you have lived. It doesn't matter who abandoned or disappointed you. You have value. You deserve respect. You deserve genuine love. And never, never is it too late to claim your dignity. I did it at 60 on an airport floor when a stranger extended his hand and said, "Trust me, they are going to regret this." And he was right. My children regretted it, not because I took revenge, but because life taught them, in the hardest way, the lessons they needed to learn. And I found something much more valuable than their regret. I found my peace. I found my purpose. I found my power. I found myself. And that is the happiest ending I could have ever imagined. Thank you for listening to the end. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change an entire day. Subscribe to hear more stories of women who transformed their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. God bless you. Until next time, my name is Mary Daniels Grant. I am 60 years old, and this is my story. A story of loss, of pain, of betrayal, but above all, a story of rebirth.